Greetings to our audience and everybody watching the conference or following the conference from wherever you are around the world. My name is Adelman Musengimana and I will be facilitating this session. I am with two brilliant entrepreneurs. We have Michelle and we have Michael, closely related names, but completely different. And we will start with Michelle. We want to pretty much get a deep understanding of the type of work you do and how you collect, handle, and use agricultural or related industries data.
So thanks so much for having me, and it's a real pleasure to be with everyone today. So I have a boutique investment and business development firm called Excite Holdings, and we invest exclusively in building food and ag tech businesses. We're very much a mission-driven business development company, so we focus around how do we use technology to create a catalyst for change, and in a way that creates employment for youth and women and that uses sustainable technology. So our big flagship business is in Botswana, which is in my background here, which is it's called Go Fresh, and it's a hydroponic fresh produce business where we use fully climate controlled greenhouses and hydroponics to grow fresh produce 365 days a year in the desert, right? So, you know, in Botswana, only 2% of the land is arable and more than 80% of the fruits and vegetables are traditionally imported in from neighboring countries. So, you know, there is not a big history of horticulture. There's not a lot of deep horticulture knowledge amongst youth or amongst anyone for that matter, because it's not really, you know, cattle farming is a big part of agriculture, but horticulture traditionally isn't. And so through our Go Fresh operations, we've been able to use technology to really disrupt the supply chain. So we all know that, you know, in Africa, 60% of fresh produce is lost either through spoilage or through waste, somewhere in the value chain. And by using technology, we're able to grow fresh produce on unarable land. And therefore, we can take land that's very close to the consumer, and we grow everything within 25 kilometers of the end consumer so that we can pick fresh every day and deliver to the consumer. So effectively, you know, we can grow fresh produce on a parking lot. That's the only land that was available. As long as it has power and water, that's what we can do. And so we use technology as a way of codifying horticulture knowledge in youth. Our computer systems control all of our irrigation and all of our climate control in our greenhouse. So, you know, they start irrigating the plants every morning at 7 a.m., 365 days a year. They're smart enough to be able to mix different fertilizer mixes depending on what we're growing in the greenhouse at any given time. And they control the internal climate of the greenhouse by operating a series of mechanical controls, whether it be fans or shade nets or pumps, etc. So it's been a very powerful technology for us for improving yields, improving production, and disrupting the supply chain, and effectively taking all of the carbon and all of the waste out of the fresh produce supply chain in Botswana.
Michael, welcome. Can you please share a little bit about the work that you are doing and how you collect, handle, and use agricultural and related industries data in your business?
Thank you very much to be there today. Thank you, Norman, to interview us. It's great to be here today. And then, so at Syncrop, I'm co-founder of Syncrop with my partner, Martin Ducroquet, and we work on data for farmers, and our mission is quite simple. We want to help all farmers to make better decisions and reduce their crop risk with a positive agro-environmental footprint. So when we say that, what we are doing is very simple. We collect data from the farmers' fields. We collect the data from the specific system sensors we put into the farmers' field. And then we use back this data, we share it with other farmers in the specific region to help them see what occurs in the field, what happened in the fields on a real time, in history, and we also mix that with some forecast data on the weather. And as we all know, for farmers, they have 3 main raw materials to start doing their job. It's the soil, it is the seeds, and then it is the weather. So we work on the weather, on the data from the weather, and then we have an application on the phone of the farmers, and they can use this application to see what occurs into their field, take better decision, save time, and have better way of spraying, of working into the field at the best time. So they, at the end of the day, they save money and have better yields.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing with us. So I round back to Michelle. Michelle, given the nature of business that you're running and running it from the desert in Botswana, I'm wondering, it sounds as if you make really huge investment into technology and probably how you manage your business. We would like to know a little bit about how you're able to use data to get your return on investment.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a little bit more broadly about, technology return on investment. And I really do think that there are 2 really important themes that I'd like to talk about. One, which is getting the right level of technology for your context and for your environment. So, for horticulture and for indoor agriculture and greenhouse and horticulture growing, trying to find that right balance of the amount of technology that you need to achieve the results and get the ROI is a very delicate balance. So, if you go to all of the fancy indoor ag shows these days, everybody's talking about vertical farming, everybody's talking about indoor farming, using all these new LED lights to grow produce, very sophisticated, robotic systems. And, that's all well and good. But I think it's very important to understand the context of the technology in the environment that you're in, right? So if you're in New York City and you want to be in controlled environment agriculture, the constraints that you have around the cost of land, the access of your lowest cost land to the city, your access to and the cost of your labor, and the overall labor availability is a much, much different equation than if you're operating that same greenhouse, say in Botswana. So, we have 355 sunny days a year. The investment in, every time I've been going to agricultural ag shows right now, everybody's talking about LED lighting. Everybody's obsessed with LED lighting. And I'm like, why would I invest in LED lighting for my greenhouses when I have 355 sunny days a year? So I think that's an example of, being cognizant of what is the level of technology that you need. The other one is labor. I mean, there's a lot of fancy robotics and different types of technology that we could use that could reduce the amount of labor that we needed potentially, but that's not the point. The point of our business is actually to create employment and to create employment for youth and for women. And if I used fancy robotics for everything, not only would I not be able to get an ROI on that technology, but I also wouldn't be creating the employment that is desperately needed in our community. So I think the first theme around agricultural technology and looking at how you can use data-driven agriculture is to think about, what is that equation of what is the technology that you need for your environment to get the results and to get the ROI. So that's one thing. I think the second important thing is to understand what is the role of commercial farmers like ourselves in terms of investing in technology, and what is the role of our favorite partner, government. And, when I build my businesses, I always usually try to keep government at arm's length, right? It's very much about how do we create this entrepreneurial environment? How do we, from a commercial sector, drive change and drive growth? But when it comes to food security in particular, there are things that are important to government, like domestic food security and job creation and economic diversification, that aren't important to me as a grower. and as a commercial enterprise. And I think you have to find that happy marriage between what investments you should be making as an entrepreneur and as a commercial business, and where do you really need to lean on government to make investments, to put in policies in place so that you can get a strong return on the investment. And it's obviously a complicated equation, and it could take like a whole 35 minutes just to talk about. But for me, those are the two key themes about creating that ROI balance on ag tech. It's getting the right technology for your context, taking into account you probably have lower cost land, you have a need to create jobs, and you've got different supply chain issues than where this technology is being innovated. And the second is, what is your role as a commercial grower vis-a-vis the strategic intent of creating domestic food security?
Thank you so much, Michelle. So I want to follow up a little bit, maybe more, because I think the point you're raising, dealing with the government at arm's length kind of level, and given that you will have already made a decision to invest and probably identify the country to invest in, when do you find like when you collect, when you harvest and probably collect and analyze your data and probably present this data to government institutions, do you find them probably understanding and probably more understanding of the nature of the business you're involved in and the unique challenges you face?
Yeah, and I think it's actually more about the infrastructure, right? So, and I think one of the interesting things that's happened with COVID, for example, is that I think it's laid bare the issues of trade as it relates to agriculture and domestic food security, right? So Botswana, as an example, is a country that imports, 80% of its fresh fruits and vegetables. And historically, this is no big deal, right? I mean, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, we border with 3 countries that have much better arable land and much better, natural horticulture production. And so historically, buying and trading fresh produce and food across the borders is no big deal. And so there was no real need to create investment in infrastructure, whether that be greenhouses, internet infrastructure, water infrastructure, power infrastructure, to enable agricultural technology to work. But during COVID, the border between Botswana and South Africa became a national security risk, right? There was no COVID really, very, very low COVID cases on the Botswana side of the border, a lot of COVID on the South African side of the border. Almost all of the cases of COVID in Botswana were imported from South Africa on truck drivers, on trucks, bringing food and oil and other goods. And so suddenly, I think one of the interesting things, and maybe one of the positive things that came out of the COVID crisis, is that I think it's highlighted to government the risk of being dependent on trade for food and for domestic food security, and the need to be able to invest in the types of technology infrastructure that are needed in order to be able to create domestic food security.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Michael, listening to your business, I think providing access to information and data about the weather, maybe the logistics that you have to go through to exchange data with the farmers, government institution, and all the key stakeholders or partners in the industry. I am wondering, how do you identify the right key strategic partners in your industry in a country of your interest or around the world? And how are you able to recoup or get back your investment you make in all these initiatives that you are doing as an organization?
Yeah, I will share you that for sure. I will speak so on the point of view of the company, of the Sencrop company, or you invest a lot of on R&D, on development, on product. So we spend a lot of time, we spend some money to do that. And then at the end of the day, we all the team do that. Every day the team wake up because we want to help all farmers to take better decisions, because we think today when you have a look on the value chain, on the ag tech, on the food tech, you will see that the farmer are at the center of a value chain where they are the lowest net margin in their business. So what we want to do at Sencrop is to give them with data the capabilities to make higher their margin, better decided. This is our focus. So now how we do that? We develop some products, some hardware products we put into the farmer's field, and we get back some data we use to spread it to farmers. But when you do that, it costs money. In fact, when you put a sensor into a field, it's costly. So what we are doing to make our business model valuable is to mesh territory with sensor. And when we have measured territory with sensor, it's to spread this data to as much as farmer as we can and as quick as we can, to be sure that we have enough customer to have a kind of return on investment on our infrastructure, on our investment. So when we have done that, we have data, in-field data infrastructure, we have a lot of farmers, customer in Syncrop, and then you can do everything. At the top of this, now you can build some kind of community. We build some communities of farmers, some communities of ecosystem of the farmer who want to have some connection with the farmers thanks to the data in their parcel. So we create some community of farmers in different areas for different crops, for different way of doing agriculture and so on. And when you have to do that, in top of this, we are able to build some new tools for farmers partner, big analytics tool, to be sure what occurs in specific geographical area, and you have some specific issue on this crop with some pest, disease, and so on. We are able to have some maps, some specific product to B2B, on the B2B side, to have back money. All of this above our first in-field sensor infrastructure. So all this stage allow us from one investment in development, in product, in put this into the field, all of this stage allow us to get back some money from our product and then have some return on investment on what you are doing.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. Really complex. And are you doing some activities in Africa as well?
Yeah, we work in North Africa, we work in South Africa, and not yet in the other country, but we will.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I will start with Michael now. So given the level of technology you're using and the stakeholders that you have in your industry, do you find that you're collecting enough data to kind of help you to do the mission that you really wanted to do? And if you are to look at the challenges and the opportunities in the industry right now, and 5 years from now, where do you see, how do you see the industry behave or change in a 5 years time frame?
So at Syncrop, we hope and we want the agriculture to change to the benefit of the farmers and the end user, you and me, when we eat some food in our plate. So we want to help farmers to have a better life, to have better yield, better revenue. So I hope really that it will change, and all of the big company, thanks to some company like Syncrop, we can give back to the farmers the capacity to better decide, to have a better bargaining power with all of the process they are in the middle in. So maybe it's a dream, but we work hard for that. And we think that to do that, farmers have to be in community, to be connected with each other, and they need to have data. And if they have both, maybe we hope they will have more power to maybe sell our product at a higher price and have take better decision in their field, have better yield, and then at the end of the day, have a better life for them and their families.
Thank you so much, Michael. I will shift my attention to Michelle. Michelle, given the work you are doing, the nature of data that you have access to, you collecting, handling, using, probably even using in decision-making process, either at your company or some of the strategic partners that you have, how do you see the industry change from where we are now in a 5 years period of time? And how would you probably describe your business during that time, in that 5 years time span?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's interesting times, and you know, one of the things that we've had to do kind of going back to ROI is, our business, because we're growing very high quality, high end product, and we had, our business was very highly tuned for the food service and for the tourism business. And and yes, we serve the local markets and the local retailers, but we really made all of our profits through food service and through tourism. And in effect, the tourism business allowed us to be able to grow and deliver produce to the local market. And the impact of COVID and lockdown, and the borders, for example, in Botswana have just recently opened up 2 weeks ago. So we literally had more than 9 months where there was literally the tourism industry just went to zero. And in an economy where 14% of GDP is in tourism, that was a really big hit on our business. So, I mean, if I look forward, we're really looking to do a number of things. So one is, during COVID, we've had to really relook at our basket. And we've been able, luckily, to adjust to be able to have more products that are more tuned for the local market, and been able to do that profitably. Although I have to admit, it's been a real struggle. The second bit is the human capital component. So for me, the most important part of what ag technology brings to the table is it allows us to bring youth into the agricultural fold. So much of commercial farming in Africa, and certainly in Southern Africa, has been dominated by, formerly white colonialists, right? It's the Afrikaans farmers, it's the Rhodesian farmers. They're really the dominant in the commercial sector. And if we want to have a successful, economically viable, and socially stable environment, we've got to bring these new young farmers up. And it's a problem when there's no generational knowledge and there's no history of something like horticulture in someone's background. And the power of technology is we can codify the knowledge into computer systems and software that helps them accelerate through that learning curve, because a lot of the complex chemistry is effectively encapsulated in the programming of the systems. The monitoring of pH and EC is encapsulated in how the system works. And so it provides a tool set for us to be able to take a new generation of farmers and bring them into the fold. And so we continue to see the opportunity to scale up our business, to get increased economies of scale, to ensure that we've got a diverse product portfolio that is nutritious and is delivering healthy, fresh produce, not only to the local community, but to the tourism and high-end market, and to continue to develop our youth leaders. So, our entire company is run by young Botswana. We hire them directly out of the university, out of the College of Agriculture, and train them from scratch. And it's the ag tech that we use that really enables that to happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we have, I think, 1 minute to go. And probably the last question is, how important is data in agriculture? Just like half a minute.
Well, I think it's, Michael, you should go. I've been spending a lot of time talking, but there's nothing more important in agriculture than math, right? And so having data and having the right data is absolutely critical to having a successful commercial and profitable agricultural organization.
Yeah, and I also think that having data is the capacity to have more power of negotiation with our partners and be connected with each other. And I really think that today, the digital, I hope, will bring, thanks to the data and the digital tool today, a lot of things which were only in specific company in the past and now could be shared to everybody. So with the right data, with the right tool, hope it will be for the best for the farmers and for the end customer, the eater, us.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for being with us. Thank you so much, Michael, for being with us. We hope to probably continue to learn more about the activities you are doing. And if you wanted to know more about your activities, how do we find you? Where do we find you?
You can follow us, I think it's in my speaker profile, but you can follow us at GoFreshBW on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram, or you can follow me on Twitter at Michelle at Excite or on LinkedIn.
On my side, you can watch the website www.syncorp.com, and then you can, with pleasure, have some discussion on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect and have some discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.